Hello, my name is Sonya Madison and welcome back to Law Filtered, where I talk about current events and some of the legal implications. Now recently the Supreme Court held that you as a defendant may have the right to impeach a jury verdict if you find racial bias. Now I know for some of you you're thinking, of course, we've talked about this before. If you discriminate, then you should be able to either overturn that decision or get a new trial. Well, there were at least 3 justices that said that they did not agree with the decision and that a defendant should have no right to impeach a jury verdict even if there is explicit or corroborative evidence of racial bias. So let's delve into some of the facts. Now in this particular case, which is Rodriguez versus Colorado, Rodriguez was convicted of harassment and unlawful sexual contact. And what happened in the facts, or at least briefly as told by the Supreme Court, Mr. Rodriguez was in a bathroom in a horse racing facility and he unlawfully touched, or at least was convicted of unlawfully touching 2 young girls. Now both young girls identified him as the perpetrator. And so after a 3-day trial, he was convicted of both of these crimes. Now, subsequent to the trial, both the attorneys, the prosecutor and the defense attorney, talked to the jurors, and at least 2 of the jurors stated that one juror had a racial bias against Hispanics. And they explicitly provided that they heard him say, well, we know this guy is Mexican and Mexican men think that they can do unlawful acts like this and get away with it. So naturally, the defense attorney draws up his motion for a new trial, and surprisingly, the judge says, hey, I acknowledge that there was a racial bias, at least that pertains to this one juror, but I'm not going to let that impeach the verdict, so the verdict will stand. So he appeals, goes up to the Court of Appeals, goes to the Colorado Supreme Court, and we are now here at the Supreme Court. Now, unsurprisingly to me, but maybe surprising to some of you, Justice Thomas went against his decision and said, hey, a defendant should have no right to impeach a jury verdict regardless of what the misconduct is. So he wouldn't care if it was discrimination or he wouldn't care if it was anything. He's saying, I don't think any defendant has a right to impeach a jury verdict based on juror misconduct. Now, I do think that's a little bit extreme because, again, if there is some misconduct, then it should be considered as to whether that does weigh against or at least calls into question whether there was a fair and impartial juror. But now a lot of other people would say, well, at least there were 11 other people. If you have a unanimous decision, which is required under criminal law, then at least you can say that there were 11 other people who were impartial or who were not biased and were considered fair, and they all concluded that this guy was in fact guilty of these both charges. But let me know what you guys think. Go ahead and send your comments, and I look forward to hearing what you got to say. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I will catch you next time on Law Filtered.